This panel will give you a better idea of how to build Groudon over there. We're going to go over some basics like construction, the methods, the materials, and other various things. I'm Tom. I've been making models and props for various years. In fact, I entered a model into the Mecha competition this year, and I won first place. And, I think you saw it at the cosplay contest.
Probably. I'm also known as K9 Hybrid. I've been building costumes since 2007, and I'm really well known for my Pokemon creations, primarily. I work at Joann Fabric, so I have a lot of experience working with these kind of materials and tools. And I really wanted to present a costume panel like this at a convention because I think that cosplay is a lot more than just dressing up as a human person thing. A lot of times there's a lot of creatures and various monsters that can be found in all sorts of things that this convention is about. And I want to make that sort of, graspable.
Yeah, like there's, you could do the Tauntaun from Star Wars, or you could do League of Legends cosplays, you could do, we have an example right there from, I'm drawing a blank.
Avatar!
Avatar, I knew the name, just, it's Sunday, less sleep, I'm sure you'll know that.
Monster Energy.
Yeah.
We got Final Fantasy characters,
yes.
Pokemon obviously,
yes.
Digimon. It comes from everywhere. So, one thing we wanted to ask about this for this panel is that we are going to be covering a lot of extensive topics, and your questions will probably be answered as we go along. So we're going to hold all questions to the very end.
Yes. Though if it pertains very, very relevant to what we're covering, please ask us so you don't forget. But
or if you need clarification
yes,
of what we said at that moment. But yes. So without further ado, let's go.
You'll want to choose a character.
Probably one of the most important steps, otherwise you couldn't get started at all. However, it's a little bit of a challenge, I would say.
Yeah, you will probably want to pick a character that appeals to you, like something you'll want to finish, because you will be this character. Cosplay, you want to be the character that you're doing, so you want to be able to finish it.
Yes, and also you want to like being the character that you are cosplaying. So, it would really help if you had something that you would want to do and you would like. The next thing you really have to worry about, though, is considering the problems of video equipment.
Yep. There we go.
Well, that's cool.
I did not click that button if you're wondering.
Is to consider the shape of the creature that you're doing, because there are literally endless possibilities that you can come up with for creature design. Can't cover everything, but we can give you the basics. You always have to consider the shape of the character and how they're proportioned, their complexity, and how costume adaptation would work most effectively. There's going to be a lot of issues you have to go around in order to get this to fit into a human form.
And one great example is Shadow Lugia.
The costume head is right here, and you've probably seen the full body walking around several times. The original design that I came up with, I started right off the bat. I did not want to have a long neck extension because that would just enable a lot of difficulty maneuvering in costume, being able to see, and a lot of times I feel that I really want to give life to my characters, and I felt the long neck would make it too stiff. I'm still working on some methods on how to get it more flexible. So I decided I need to go with a more antho version.
That and the longer neck means you'd have more support, which would be more weight on your shoulders, which is uncomfortable and you wouldn't want to wear it for too long.
Exactly. There's a lot of things, again, to consider. And here was the first one I did. I decided what would it look like if I kept every single solitary Lugia proportion except for that long neck. As you can see, it looks a little awkward. It's very large, round, low set. Yeah, it wasn't quite what I was going for. So I tried again.
And this was the next design.
This one is basically no body padding whatsoever. It's as if I kept completely human-like body, minus the wings, of course. And I decided it wasn't quite animal enough. It wasn't quite Lugia enough.
And then we came to this. Well, she came to this.
A compromise between the two. I have the digitigrade padding, which gives the effect of having an animal's leg as if they're standing on their toes. And a few little tweaks here and there gave it a nice balance that I thought was appropriate for costume design, just likability in my standards, and how well it portrays the character without sacrificing too much.
There we go. Did I skip one?
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, yes, okay. I swear there's another sound. slide onto a
So
big.
yeah, here's some examples of characters you could do. There's Kyuubi from Naruto. There's Renamon from Digimon. I'm sure a lot of you know both of those. And there's Toothless from the How to Train Your Dragon. And all of these are courtesy of Manuyasha. She's very talented, all except for the
The Renamon, yes, that's Cassini Closet. Alrighty.
You'll want to adapt the shape to the human form. For example, take Umbreon. Umbreon's it walks on all fours, so we made it stand up straight, bipedal. She also did this with Shadow Lugia.
The adaptation to human form, there are some very key things you need to keep in mind. I think one of the largest ones is probably vision. You need to be able to see where you're going, or at least have some way that you can walk around without injuring yourself or others. Kind of important.
Yes.
Weight of the costume is going to play a big factor as well, because you can get tired, and, well, Groudon is a pretty heavy costume.
She's getting pretty tired already.
But I have made some adjustments with it in terms of how I built it. I can show you later. They give a lot of good airflow, and we make sure she has lots of brakes. We have to, so it's a element we have to go around in making cosplay.
Yeah. You'll also want lots of references, so you have a better idea of how the head is shaped, because you'll have an idea of it in your head, but it's better to see it in front of you. So you might make one of the arrow things on the head shorter than it's supposed to be. You have a good example on the feet, don't you?
The feet.
On Groudon, you said there was.
Oh, right. For example, when I was building Groudon and I was drawing up all this concept art, I didn't have a good view of the back view because the Pokemon Black and White games had not come out, so I didn't have the back sprite. And then I was watching a TV show with Groudon, and I noticed something I didn't at first. The very back of the feet here, there are these brakes that give it a special imprint of the footprint on the ground, and I didn't plan for that in my original design, so it was something I had to go back and later check up. When I start a costume, I gather as much references as possible. Screenshots, 3D models, little figurines, artwork, and even costumes that other people have already created before you.
It gives you a better idea of how they've done it, or it gives you an idea of how you could do it better.
It's gonna keep doing that.
Yes, but
Fantastic.
Fantastico.
And then back to some adaptations, we also mentioned movement is a big one. You don't want to constrain your movement too much, otherwise you won't want to move around in it very often. Comfortability determines exactly how long you could stand wearing in it without suffering. And we talked about quadrupedal versus bipedal. And as you saw previously, there was a Toothless cosplay that is actually called a quad suit, where it has extensions for the arms. That's a very advanced technique. We'll not be covering it in our main panel.
You can
but
ask
it does
us later
exist.
about it, but yes, it's a very, very advanced technique that most people can't do their first time around.
Yeah, we don't recommend it.
Yeah. You'll want to start planning. You'll want to sketch a design, no matter how basic it is.
Yeah, even if you are not quite the artist, stick figures and little scribbles honestly help you out so much.
I'm good at painting, but not drawing. I draw stick figures.
You draw stick figures.
Yes.
And it works just fine.
Yes, it does. That's how we got Umbreon made.
If you're not the best drawer in the world, there are a few other options that you can use for getting your design on paper, because in your head, it only goes so far. You cannot understand a lot of how it's going to finally look and the complexities that come about it and the challenges within the design until you've actually analyzed each section of it. Here is an example of something I did. I actually took photographs of myself standing like this, up to the side, and the back. So what I did is I took it into the computer and I traced it, so I made just a line-up version of it. But another thing you could do is take photographs, you could print them out, and then on top of that, you can draw your design. I did this so I can determine exactly how my body, not his, not hers, my body would fit into my idea of a costume.
But she's the one wearing it, not me.
And so that's why I really recommend trying to do the photographing. It's a little difficult sometimes to get the proportions just right, but it will honestly help you visualize it better in the long run, and you can make changes depending on your body shape and your type. You want to do something that is going to work for you. And you don't have to do it this fancy, by any means.
Yes, you can be very simple sketching like I do.
And the last option is, if you're like, I'm not going to draw this, commission somebody to draw it for you. There are lots of people that do costume art design out there, and they would love your business. In fact, they've worked so much with costumes, they could probably offer you a lot of advice and help just getting started or figuring out whether or not you should do that extra padding on the leg or not.
In fact, there's some references, for free references. They're not as great as the commission ones, but they're online.
They're free templates.
Search for them.
Yeah, they usually come in basic shapes, like, for example, a wolf. You want to do a basic wolf. Oh, I'm going to turn into a kami. You print out that white wolf and you draw it as a kami markings, and you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This gives me an idea of how it's going to look, and multiple angles also really helps. Because like I said, I wouldn't have known how to do the background on if I hadn't looked at a picture of the back. So that's kind of how that plays in.
You'll also want to break it down into several parts because it'll be more manageable that way. It varies between project and project. With Saraluga, you had to attach the tail to the body, so you couldn't work on the tail separately.
Correct. I decided not to make it attachable. Same thing with Groudon here. The bodysuit and the tail are one piece. I mostly did that. It's a little bit of inconvenience, but as one piece, it would flow better, and all the movement would translate better to the tail. And it would not have an ugly seam running around where there's an obvious separated section. So I couldn't sacrifice that for Groudon, but say your Umbreon over
We
there.
could easily do that. Can you stand up and show them?
Come on over here.
Like your tail.
This tail is completely separate. It's not attached to the bodysuit, so it doesn't weigh it down in the back. It's connected by a belt.
Yep. And for the Groudon, it's one continuous tail that goes into the body, so it looks more natural, which is what you were aiming for, I was assuming?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the other divisions of the bodysuit.
Yeah, so you go to the head whenever the screen comes back up, body, tail, hands and feet.
Yeah, it's a lot of times just analyzing each separate piece and determining, okay, what can be removable, what needs to be removable for being able to get in and out of the costume.
For ease of transporting it, because if it's all one thing, you have to have like an SUV.
Yeah, Groudon does not travel easily.
It takes up 3 seats.
So that, yeah, that is something that we have to work around, but...
And something very, very important is you want a second opinion. Try to take it as nicely as you can. They're not, when they write it out of like several paragraphs, don't take it as an insult. They just really want to help you and they're really excited and can't control themselves. I'm sure you guys have read
A second eye will give you great insight into what may not work that you did not see before. And especially when you're just starting out, you have not quite the idea of, okay, how is this padding going to affect the way I walk? Or how am I going to be able to see if my eyes are a little bit too far apart? But I think it looks okay. It may not work in practicality, and someone be able to point that out to you before you get into trouble in the building stage.
No matter how much you've done it, there's probably someone else who's done it more.
Exactly. And on your little sheets that we passed out is the reference guide that you need for knowing everything there is to know about this and asking questions. It's the Fursuit Community on Live Journal. It's near the top of the page. If you want to critique, go there. If you want to see other people's work in progress and see their critiques, go there.
There's also 2 common methods. Riley, she usually works on the entire thing in stages, where I worked on Umbreon, like I finished the head and I worked on the feet.
Yeah, to explain that a little bit better, I do all of the foam work construction first, the entire thing, hand, head, tail, etc. And then once all of that is together and finished, I take a look at it, see how it moves, see how it feels, and I determine, okay, is that hand going to be big enough, or do I need to make it a little smaller in compared to the rest of the body and the head? It's all about balancing your proportions. It's a lot more difficult when you have a very large-headed character, which we'll see a little bit later. You have to make sure, in relation to their body, that it's going to look right, and you're going to be able to translate that to the design. So by doing that, I can determine all the fixing that needs to be done in the foaming stage before it's too late. If I had already finished the head, did all the fabric, all the eyes, and everything, and then I started working on the bodysuit, I go, uh-oh, that head is too small. Well, the other option is to accept that, or I'm going to have to rip apart and fix some things.
And that's more work than you'd be willing to do.
Mm-hmm. So I do suggest doing it as a fully one like stage, the foaming stage, and then the fabric stage.